What happens when a 7-year-old gets tired of being invisible at family Christmas? My daughter received the same cheap candle while her cousins got iPhones and cash. But this year, she had a red box from her dad with strict instructions. Give this to grandma if she makes you feel invisible again. What was inside that box completely shattered our family Christmas and changed everything forever. You won't believe how this story ends. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and everything looks perfect, but something feels completely wrong. That's exactly what happened on Christmas Eve 2019. My mother-in-law Evelyn's house was like something out of a magazine. Every ornament placed with surgical precision. Every string of lights perfectly aligned, the kind of Christmas decorations that whisper, "Don't touch anything" the moment you step inside. But here's the thing about perfect houses. They're usually hiding imperfect people. I'm watching my 7-year-old daughter Ali smooth down her favorite red dress for the third time. She's been planning this outfit for weeks. In her tiny hands, she's clutching this small box wrapped in newspaper comics, because that's all we had at home. She spent an hour picking out the funniest strip for the wrapping paper. Calvin and Hobbes, if you're wondering. Her eyes are sparkling with that pure Christmas morning excitement that only kids can have. "Mommy, do you think Grandma Evelyn will like my present?" she whispers to me as we settle into the living room. I smile at her, but there's this knot forming in my stomach. Because I know Evelyn, and I know what's coming. The living room is buzzing with Chris's family. His sister Sarah is here with her kids Maddie and Jonah. His brother Mark brought Oliver, who's about Allie's age. Everyone's talking and laughing, and for a moment it almost feels normal. Almost feels like we belong here. Then Evelyn clears her throat. That's the signal. Gift time. She's standing by this massive Christmas tree that probably cost more than my car payment, holding a stack of silver gift bags. The expensive kind with rope handles and tissue paper that costs more than actual gifts at some stores. All right, everyone, time for Grandma's special presents. Maddie goes first. 13 years old, perfectly styled hair, wearing what I'm pretty sure is a designer sweater. Evelyn hands her a silver bag with a flourish. "Open it, sweetheart." Inside, the newest iPhone. The one that just came out. Maddie screams and jumps up to hug Evelyn. "Oh my God, Grandma, this is like $800. Only the best for my granddaughter, Evelyn beams. Next is Jonah. 15, all awkward limbs and braces. But Evelyn's face lights up the same way. Another silver bag. Another iPhone. Plus an envelope. "What's in there, buddy?" Mark asks. Jonah's eyes go wide. It's $500 cash. $500. I'm doing the math in my head. That's our grocery budget for 2 months. Then Oliver. Sweet Oliver, who always shares his snacks with Allie during family gatherings. Same silver bag, same iPhone, same envelope of cash. He looks over at Allie and gives her this little smile like he's trying to include her in the excitement. And then there's silence. Allie is sitting on the edge of the couch, her little legs swinging because they don't quite reach the floor yet. She's still holding her Calvin and Hobbes wrapped box, waiting for her turn. Her eyes are darting between the other kids and their new phones, then back to Evelyn. Evelyn reaches under the tree. But this time, no silver bag. Instead, she pulls out this small, poorly wrapped rectangle. The wrapping paper looks like it came from the dollar store. There's no bow, no careful folding. It looks like an afterthought. And this is for Ali. She doesn't say, "My granddaughter." She doesn't say, "Sweetheart." She just says, "Ali," like she's reading from a grocery list. Ali takes the gift with both hands, still smiling, still hopeful. She unwraps it carefully the way kids do when they think something magical might be inside. It's a candle, a small lavender-scented candle from what looks like a gas station gift section. The kind you grab when you forgot someone's birthday and you're already in the checkout line. But here's the part that breaks my heart. Ali looks at that candle like it's treasure. She brings it to her nose and takes a deep breath. "It smells really nice, Grandma Evelyn. Thank you." That's when I notice the gift tag. It's partially hidden under Ali's thumb, but I can see it. In Evelyn's careful handwriting, "To Chris's girl." Not to my granddaughter, not to Ailey, to Chris's girl, like she's a visitor, like she doesn't belong here. The room has gone quiet. Sarah is suddenly very interested in her wine glass. Mark is checking his phone. Chris is staring at the floor like he's trying to memorize the carpet pattern. But Oliver is looking right at Owly, then at his new iPhone, then back at Owly's candle. Even at 7 years old, he knows something isn't right. Allie places the candle carefully on the coffee table and picks up her comic-wrapped gift. I made something for you too, Grandma Evelyn. She walks over and places it on the side table next to Evelyn's chair. Her little red dress swishes as she moves, and for a second she looks so small in this big, perfect room. Evelyn glances at the gift but doesn't pick it up, doesn't unwrap it, just nods and says, "How thoughtful," in the same tone you'd use to acknowledge a piece of junk mail. Ailey's smile falters for just a moment, just long enough for me to see her childhood innocence crack a little. She looks down at her hands, then back up at me. I can't take it anymore. I lean down and whisper in her ear, "Next year will be different, baby." But honestly, I don't know if I believe it myself. As the evening winds down and everyone starts talking about other things, I watch Allie sitting quietly in the corner, turning that cheap candle over in her hands like she's trying to figure out why it feels different from everyone else's gifts. And Evelyn's gift. The one Ailey spent an hour wrapping with comic strips. It's still sitting on that side table, unopened, forgotten. Like Allie herself, that night driving home in our old Honda, Ailey is quiet in the back seat. Finally, she speaks up. "Mommy, why did everyone else get phones?" I look at Chris. He's gripping the steering wheel so tight his knuckles are white. But he doesn't say anything. He never says anything when it comes to his mother. And different people show love in different ways, sweetheart. I tell her, hating myself for making excuses. "Oh," long pause. "Do you think she didn't like my present?" "I think your present was beautiful, baby. Sometimes grown-ups forget to open presents right away." But even as I say it, I know that gift will probably end up in Evelyn's junk drawer unopened until she throws it away during spring cleaning. That's the thing about being 7 years old. You still believe that love is supposed to be fair. You still think that if you're good enough, kind enough, if you make the perfect present and wear your favorite dress, that people will see you. Ailey fell asleep in the car that night, still holding her lavender candle. And I made a promise to myself sitting in that driveway watching my husband avoid eye contact. This was the last Christmas Eve my daughter would spend feeling invisible. I just didn't know yet how we were going to make that happen. But let me back up. Because to understand why that Christmas Eve hurt so much, you need to know Allie's story. And trust me, it's not what you'd expect. I was 19 when I had Allie. 19, scared and completely alone. Her biological father decided fatherhood wasn't for him about 5 minutes after I told him I was pregnant. Just vanished. Changed his number, moved states, the whole thing. I spent the first 3 years of Allie's life working 2 jobs and living in a studio apartment that was barely bigger than some people's closets. But here's what I learned during those years. Some of the strongest bonds are forged in the smallest spaces. It was just me and Allie against the world. She was my shadow, my tiny best friend, my reason for everything. I met Chris when Allie was 4. She was at that age where she asked a million questions about everything, including why some kids had daddies, and she didn't. I was working at a coffee shop downtown trying to make ends meet when this guy in a rumpled suit walked in looking like he'd been hit by a truck. "Rough day?" I asked, making his usual order. He'd been coming in for weeks, but never really talked much. "My presentation just crashed 15 minutes before the biggest meeting of my career," he said, rubbing his temples. "And my laptop decided to die, and I spilled coffee on my backup notes." Without thinking, I handed him some napkins and said, "You know what my 4-year-old tells me when everything goes wrong? She says, 'Mommy, maybe today is just practice for tomorrow.'" He looked up at me, then really looked and smiled for the first time since I'd known him. "Your 4-year-old sounds pretty wise." She is. Wise and stubborn, and obsessed with dinosaurs. My kind of kid. That's how it started. Not some grand romantic gesture, but a conversation about my daughter's dinosaur obsession in a coffee shop that smelled like burnt espresso and broken dreams. Chris started coming in more often, always asked about Ali, always remembered the little stories I'd tell about her latest adventures, or questions, or crayon masterpieces. After a few months, he asked if he could meet her. I was terrified. Ali had never really had a male figure in her life, and I didn't want to confuse her or get her hopes up. But there was something about Chris. The way he listened when I talked about her, the way his face lit up when I'd show him pictures of her latest art project. Their first meeting was at the zoo. I figured neutral territory, lots of distractions. Easy exit strategy if things went wrong. Ali was wearing her favorite T-Rex shirt and carrying a stuffed triceratops named Mr. Spikes. Chris showed up with a kid's book about paleontology. "I heard you like dinosaurs," he said, kneeling down to her level. Ali looked at the book, then at him, then at me. "Did you know that T-Rex arms weren't actually useless? They could lift 400 pounds each." Really, I didn't know that. "What else can you teach me?" And that was it. For the next 3 hours, Ali gave Chris a comprehensive tour of every dinosaur exhibit, complete with facts she'd memorized from library books. He listened to every word like she was delivering a doctoral thesis. On the drive home, Ali was quiet for a while. Then she said, "Mommy, Chris is nice. Does he have to go away like my other daddy did?" My heart broke a little. "I don't know, baby, but right now he's here and he thinks you're pretty amazing." "Good, because I like him. And Mr. Spikes likes him too." Mr. Spikes was very particular about people he liked. This was a big deal. Chris and I dated for 2 years. Slow, careful, always putting Ali first. He never tried to be her father, never overstepped, but he showed up. Soccer games, school plays, bedtime stories when I was working late shifts. He learned how to braid hair from YouTube videos because Ali wanted fancy hair for picture day. He helped her build a volcano for the science fair that was honestly way too advanced for second grade, but she was so proud of it. When Chris proposed, he didn't just ask me, he asked Ali too. "I love your mom," he told her, sitting on our tiny couch with a ring box in his hand. "But I also love you, and I was wondering if you'd be okay with me becoming your dad. Like officially. Legal papers and everything." Ali looked at the ring, then at him, then at me. "Would I get to change my last name to yours, if you want to? And you'd come to all my school stuff and help me with homework and read bedtime stories, even when I'm too old for them. Even when you're 30 and have kids of your own if you want." She was quiet for a long moment, thinking it over with the seriousness of a Supreme Court justice. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, but Mr. Spikes has to approve." She held up her stuffed triceratops. Chris solemnly shook Mr. Spikes's tiny dinosaur hand. "Welcome to the family, Chris," Ali announced. The adoption process took 8 months. 8 months of paperwork and court dates and background checks. But the day it was finalized was one of the best days of our lives. We all dressed up and went to the courthouse. The judge, this kind older woman, made a big deal about it. "Ali, do you understand that Chris is going to be your father now? That means he'll always be there for you, always love you, and always be part of your family." "Yes, ma'am, and I'm going to be his daughter, which means I get to love him back and help him learn about dinosaurs." The judge smiled. "That sounds like a pretty good deal." When she signed the papers making it official, Chris cried. Actually cried right there in the courtroom. Ali climbed onto his lap and wiped his tears with her tiny hands. "It's happy crying, right, Daddy? The happiest crying ever, sweetheart." That was the first time she called him Daddy. We have a picture from that day, all 3 of us on the courthouse steps. Ali is holding the official adoption certificate like it's a diploma. Chris has his arms around both of us. I'm crying too, but like Chris said, the happiest crying ever. We thought that was it. We thought the hard part was over. We were a family now, legal and official and complete. Then we met Evelyn. At first she seemed okay. Surprised maybe that Chris had suddenly acquired a ready-made family, but she smiled at the right times and said the right things. She called Allie sweetheart and asked about school and even sent a card on her first birthday after the adoption. But looking back, I can see the signs I missed. The way she always introduced Allie as Chris's daughter instead of my granddaughter, how she'd plan family events and somehow forget to mention Allie's specific details. Like when she organized a cousin's sleepover and told all the other grandkids to bring matching pajamas, but never told us about the pajama thing. Allie showed up in regular clothes while all the other kids had these cute coordinated sets. "Oh," Evelyn said when she saw Allie. "I guess I forgot to mention the pajama theme." "Forgot." Right. Or the group text she created for planning family gatherings. All the parents were in it sharing school schedules and extracurriculars so Evelyn could plan around everyone's activities. Somehow, Allie's school play or soccer games never made it into the planning conversation. We'd show up to family dinners, and Evelyn would say things like, "Oh, we didn't know Allie had a game today. We could have scheduled around it." Except she did know. We'd told her. Multiple times. Birthday party invitations for cousins would arrive for Maddie, Jonah, and Oliver. Allie's invitation would get lost in the mail. We'd find out about parties on social media, seeing pictures of all the cousins together while Allie sat at home wondering why she wasn't invited. "I'm sure it was just a mistake," Chris would say every time. "Mom's getting older, she forgets things." But you don't forget one specific child consistently for 3 years. That's not forgetfulness, that's a choice. The worst part was watching Allie try to understand it. She'd ask questions that broke my heart. Why don't I get invited to Oliver's birthday parties? Why didn't Grandma Evelyn come to my school play when she went to Maddie's? Do you think she doesn't like me? And what do you say to that? How do you explain to a 7-year-old that sometimes adults are petty and cruel for no good reason? How do you tell her that her grandmother doesn't see her as real family without destroying her faith in the world? So I made excuses. "She's busy, baby." Maybe the invitation got lost. She probably just forgot. But Allie wasn't stupid. She saw the pattern. She started asking fewer questions and expecting less. And that might have been the most heartbreaking part of all. The final straw was last Easter. Every year Evelyn went all out for Easter. Custom gift baskets for each grandchild filled with their favorite candy and little toys and these beautiful chocolate eggs with their names written in fancy script. Maddie got a basket filled with makeup samples and gift cards because she was getting into that teenage beauty phase. Jonah got sports stuff and video game cards. Oliver got art supplies because he loved to draw. Allie got a grocery bag. Not even a basket, a paper grocery bag with some loose jelly beans rolling around in the bottom. No chocolate egg, no name tag, no thought whatsoever. She held that bag like it contained treasures, because that's the kind of kid she was. Always grateful, always trying to find the good in everything. But I saw her looking at the other kids' baskets. I saw her counting the jelly beans, like she was trying to make them last longer. That night, after we got home, I found her in her room, carefully sorting those jelly beans by color and putting them in a small jewelry box. "What are you doing, sweetheart?" "Making them special," she said simply. "If I organize them nice, they'll last longer." That's when I knew. This wasn't about forgotten invitations or mixed-up schedules anymore. This was about a little girl learning to make herself smaller to fit into spaces that didn't want her, learning to be grateful for scraps while watching other kids get feasts. And I decided right then that it was going to stop. I just didn't know how yet. But sometimes the universe has a way of providing opportunities. Sometimes all it takes is one more Christmas Eve, one more blatant act of exclusion, and one red box that's been waiting for exactly the right moment. You see, there was something I hadn't told Chris yet about what Allie and I had been planning. Something that was going to change everything. Because my 7-year-old daughter was about to teach our whole family what it really means to stand up for yourself. The fight happened 3 weeks before that Christmas Eve. We were in Evelyn's kitchen after another family dinner where Ali had been systematically ignored. This time, it was picture time. Evelyn had insisted on taking photos of all the grandchildren for her annual Christmas cards. All the grandchildren. Except Ali was asked to help take the pictures instead of being in them. I watched my daughter stand behind that camera holding Evelyn's phone, carefully framing shots of Maddie, Jonah, and Oliver in their matching sweaters. Sweaters that Evelyn had bought for everyone except Ali. Make sure you get Oliver's good side, Evelyn directed, completely oblivious to the fact that she was asking a 7-year-old to document her own exclusion. Ali nodded seriously and kept taking pictures like it was an honor to be the family photographer instead of family. After dinner, I cornered Chris in the kitchen while he was loading the dishwasher. We need to talk about your mother. Jenna, not tonight. Yes, tonight. Chris, she literally just excluded our daughter from the family Christmas photos. How are you okay with this? He slammed a plate into the dishwasher harder than necessary. She's not excluding her. Ellie was helping. Helping? She's 7 years old. She should be in the pictures, not taking them. Maybe Ali wanted to help. Did you ask her? Are you serious right now? You're going to put this on Ali? Make it her choice that she's being left out. Chris turned around and I could see the exhaustion in his eyes. What do you want me to do, Jenna? Start a war with my mother over Christmas photos. I want you to stand up for your daughter. She is my daughter, and I love her. But my mother is old-fashioned. She needs time to adjust. Adjust, Chris? It's been 3 years. 3 years of forgotten birthday invitations and grocery bag Easter baskets and being called Chris's girl instead of her granddaughter. When exactly is this adjustment period supposed to end? He was quiet for a long moment, just standing there with his hands gripping the edge of the counter. She'll come around. No, she won't. And you know it. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I can't just cut my mother out of our lives. I'm not asking you to cut her out. I'm asking you to protect Ali, to stand up and say that this isn't okay. And then what? My mother gets defensive, everyone takes sides, and suddenly family gatherings become war zones. Is that what you want for Ali? You know, what I want for Ali? I want her to stop thinking that love is something she has to earn. I want her to stop accepting scraps and pretending they're feasts. I want her to know that she matters just as much as every other kid in this family. That's when we heard the voice from the doorway. Mommy, Daddy, are you fighting about me? We both turned. Ali was standing there in her little dress holding Mr. Spikes, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. No, baby, I said quickly. We're just talking. It's okay. I know you're fighting about Grandma Evelyn and me. She walked over and sat down at the kitchen table, placing Mr. Spikes carefully in front of her. Can I ask you something? Chris knelt down next to her chair. Of course, sweetheart. Anything. Do you think I'm just visiting here? Like in this family? The question hit like a punch to the stomach. Chris and I looked at each other, and I could see my own heartbreak reflected in his eyes. What do you mean, baby? I asked. Well, I was thinking about it, and sometimes when people visit, they get different stuff than the people who live there. Like visitors might get the guest towels instead of the regular towels. Or they might sit in different chairs. And maybe Grandma Evelyn thinks I'm just visiting your family, so I get different presents, and I don't go in the pictures with the real grandchildren. Oh God. She'd been trying to make sense of it, trying to find a logical explanation for why she was treated differently. And somehow, she'd decided it must be because she didn't really belong. Ali, Chris said, his voice thick with emotion. You are not visiting. You are my daughter. You are part of this family forever and always. I know you think that, Daddy, but maybe Grandma Evelyn doesn't know that yet. That's when Oliver appeared in the doorway. He'd been looking for the bathroom, but had obviously overheard part of the conversation. He looked uncomfortable, like he'd walked in on something private. Hey, Oliver, I said. Did you need something? He shifted from foot to foot, glancing between Ali and us. I heard what Ali said about visiting. Allie looked up at him. Oliver was her favorite cousin, the one who always shared his snacks and included her in games when the older kids ignored her. Oliver, she said seriously, do you think I'm just visiting here? I watched Oliver's face. He was only 7, but kids see things adults try to hide. He knew exactly what Allie was talking about. He looked away, fidgeting with his hands. I don't know. It was an honest answer from a little kid who was trying to navigate an impossible situation, but I could see it land on Allie like a physical blow. Oh, she said quietly. Okay. Oliver immediately looked upset, realizing he'd hurt her feelings. I mean, I don't think you're visiting. I think you're my cousin. I just don't understand why my grandma, why she... He trailed off, unable to articulate what we all knew, but couldn't quite say out loud. It's okay, Oliver, Allie said, giving him a small smile. I don't understand either. That night, after we got home, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Allie's question, about the way Oliver had looked away, about Chris's refusal to confront his mother. Something had to change. But I didn't know what. The next morning, I started putting together a plan. If Chris wasn't going to stand up to his mother, maybe it was time for Allie to stand up for herself. Not in a confrontational way, but in a way that would make it impossible for anyone to ignore what was happening. I went to the craft store and bought a small red gift box, something that would stand out, something memorable. I spent the afternoon putting together what I thought might be a way for Allie to show Evelyn exactly how her treatment was affecting a 7-year-old child. But when I mentioned it to Chris that evening, he was quiet for a long time. You're already working on something, I said finally. It wasn't a question. He nodded. I've been thinking about what you said, about standing up for her. And I made something too, a red box. I've been carrying it around for months, actually waiting for the right moment. Or hoping I'd never need to use it. What's in it? He looked at me and I could see something I'd never seen before in his eyes. A quiet determination that reminded me of Allie herself. Proof, he said simply. Proof that she's my daughter in every way that matters. And if my mother ever makes Allie feel invisible again, if she ever treats her like a visitor in our family one more time... He pulled a small red box out of his desk drawer. It was wrapped simply with a white ribbon. I told Allie she could give her this. I told her that if Grandma Evelyn ever made her feel like she didn't belong, she had permission to make sure everyone knew exactly who she is and where she belongs. I stared at the box. What did Allie say? She asked if she was allowed to stand up for herself. Can you imagine 7 years old and she's asking permission to defend her own worth? And what did you tell her? I told her that sometimes when people can't see how amazing you are on their own, you have to help them understand. I told her that being quiet and polite is good, but not when it means making yourself invisible. And if she gives Evelyn the box? Chris looked out the window, where Allie was playing in the backyard, with Mr. Spikes, completely oblivious to the conversation that was about to change everything. Then my mother will understand exactly what she's been doing, and exactly what she stands to lose if she keeps doing it. I reached over and touched the red box. It felt heavier than it should have, like it was carrying the weight of 3 years of hurt feelings and unanswered questions. Do you think she'll actually do it? Give her the box. I think Allie is stronger than all of us give her credit for. And I think she's tired of feeling like she doesn't belong in her own family. He was right. Over the next few weeks, I watched Allie carry that red box in her backpack to family gatherings. Not to threaten anyone, but like a security blanket. Like knowing she had permission to stand up for herself made her feel braver just carrying it around. Christmas Eve was coming up fast. Evelyn had already mentioned the gift exchange, already hinted that she had special surprises for her grandchildren. Plural. Not including Allie, of course. Chris and I both knew this was going to be the moment. The final test of whether Evelyn could see past her own prejudices and embrace the little girl who'd been trying so hard to earn her love, But more importantly, it was going to be the moment Allie decided she was worth fighting for. And honestly, I couldn't wait to see what happened when a 7-year-old girl finally decided she was done being invisible. Christmas morning arrived with that crisp, bright energy that only comes once a year. But this time felt different. There was an electricity in the air like right before a thunderstorm, when you can feel the pressure building, but you're not sure exactly when lightning will strike. We were heading to Evelyn's for Christmas brunch, a tradition that had started when Chris was a kid and continued with the next generation. Usually, I approach these gatherings with a mixture of hope and dread. Hope that maybe this time would be different, and dread because I knew it probably wouldn't be. But today, I felt something else entirely. A calm certainty that whatever happened, it was going to be the last time we pretended everything was fine. Allie was unusually quiet during the drive. She was wearing a new dress, deep blue, with little silver stars on it, and she'd insisted on doing her own hair. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers, and there was something about the way she carried herself that seemed different. More sure of herself somehow. In her small purse, I knew she was carrying the red box. "You okay, sweetheart?" I asked, turning around to look at her in the back seat. She nodded but didn't say anything. She was looking out the window, watching the houses decorated with Christmas lights blur past. "Remember what we talked about?" Chris said quietly, catching her eyes in the rearview mirror. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to do." "I know, Daddy. And whatever happens, we're proud of you." "I know that too." When we pulled into Evelyn's driveway, I could see that everyone else was already there. Sarah's minivan, Mark's SUV cars lined up like this was some kind of summit meeting. Which I guess in a way it was. Walking into that house felt like walking onto a stage where everyone knew their roles except me. Evelyn was in full hostess mode, fluttering around in a red sweater that probably cost more than our car payment, making sure everyone had coffee and croissants and everything was picture perfect. "Oh, good you're here," she called out when she saw us. "I was just about to start the gift exchange. I have such wonderful surprises for my grandchildren this year." There was that phrase again. My grandchildren. Singular, not plural, despite the fact that there were 4 kids in the room. Allie hung her coat carefully in the closet and joined the other kids in the living room. I watched Evelyn watch her, and for just a second, I thought I saw something that might have been warmth in her expression. But it passed so quickly, I might have imagined it. "All right, everyone gather around," Evelyn announced. "Picture time before presents." Here we go, I thought, round 2 of the family photo exclusion. But this time was different. This time, Evelyn looked directly at Allie and said, "All the grandchildren, please, by the Christmas tree." I felt a flutter of hope. Maybe she had listened. Maybe she'd realized what she'd been doing. Allie walked over to join Maddie, Jonah, and Oliver by the tree. Evelyn positioned them, carefully adjusting angles and smoothing hair. She took about 20 photos, checking each one on her phone, making small adjustments. "Perfect," she finally declared. "These will be beautiful for my Christmas cards." But then, as the kids started to move away from the tree, she called out, "Oh wait, let me get a few more, just of my biological grandchildren." The words hit the room like a physical slap. Biological grandchildren, not including Allie. I watched my daughter's face go completely still. Not hurt, not angry, just empty. Like she'd been expecting this all along and was almost relieved to have it confirmed. "Evelyn?" Chris said, his voice low and warning. "What I want some photos of just Maddie, Jonah, and Oliver. Is that not allowed?" The other adults in the room suddenly found their coffee cups very interesting. Sarah was studying the ceiling like she was looking for cracks. Mark had pulled out his phone and was pretending to check messages. Allie quietly stepped away from the tree and came to sit next to me on the couch. She didn't say anything, didn't cry, didn't make a scene. She just sat there watching Evelyn fuss over the other 3 kids like they were precious gems and she was invisible. "Now," Evelyn said once she'd taken about 50 more photos, "present time." The gift distribution was almost identical to Christmas Eve, but somehow worse because it was happening in broad daylight with nowhere to hide. Maddie got a designer purse and matching wallet. Jonah got the latest gaming headset and a gift card to his favorite store. Oliver got an art set that looked like it cost more than most people's monthly salary. And then there was a pause. A long, awkward pause where everyone looked around like they were waiting for something. "Oh," Evelyn said, finally sounding surprised. "I almost forgot." She reached under the tree and pulled out the same small, poorly wrapped package from Christmas Eve. The exact same lavender candle in what looked like the exact same dollar store wrapping paper. "Here you go, Allie." Allie took the package with both hands and unwrapped it slowly. When she saw it was the same candle, she didn't react at all. She just held it and said, "Thank you, Grandma Evelyn." But this time there was no gift tag. Not even "to Chris's girl." This time Evelyn couldn't even be bothered to write her name. That's when I saw Oliver lean over and whisper something in Allie's ear. I couldn't hear what he said, but I saw Allie nod slowly and reach for her purse. "Actually, Grandma Evelyn," Allie said, standing up. Her voice was clear and calm, but there was something underneath it that made everyone in the room pay attention. "I have something for you too." She walked over to Evelyn's chair, carrying a small red box with a white ribbon. I had never seen my 7-year-old daughter look more composed or more sure of herself. "What's this, sweetheart?" Evelyn asked, and for the first time all day, her voice sounded genuinely warm. "It's from Daddy," Allie said simply. "He told me to give this to you if you made me feel invisible again." The room went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Sarah stopped pretending to drink her coffee. Mark actually looked up from his phone. Even the other kids stopped unwrapping their expensive gifts to watch what was happening. Evelyn's expression shifted. The warm grandmother act dropped away, replaced by something colder and more calculating. "Made you feel invisible? What a dramatic thing to say." "It's not dramatic," Allie replied calmly. "It's just true." She placed the box on the small table next to Evelyn's chair and stepped back. Not challenging, not angry, just matter of fact. "You don't have to open it if you don't want to," Allie continued. "But Daddy said it might help you understand some things." Evelyn picked up the box and I saw something flash across her face. Annoyance? Maybe, or irritation that her perfect Christmas morning was being disrupted by what she probably saw as a child's tantrum. "Well," she said with a tight smile, "I suppose I should see what Chris has to say." She untied the white ribbon slowly, like she was performing for an audience. Which I guess she was. Everyone in the room was watching her, waiting to see what would happen next. She lifted the lid of the red box and looked inside, and then her face changed completely. The smug confidence drained away. Her mouth opened slightly like she was going to say something, but no words came out. She lifted something from the box and I could see her hand starting to shake. "What is it, Mom?" Sarah asked, craning her neck to try to see. But Evelyn didn't answer. She just sat there staring at whatever Chris had put in that box, her face going paler by the second. The silence stretched on, becoming more uncomfortable with each passing moment. Allie was still standing there, calm and patient, like she was waiting for something she'd known was coming all along. Finally, Oliver couldn't take it anymore. "What's in the box?" he asked. Evelyn looked up at Allie, then at Chris, then back at the contents of the box. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "How long have you been planning this?" But it wasn't really a question. It was the sound of someone realizing that the game they thought they were winning had been over for a long time, and they'd just been too blind to see it. Evelyn reached into the red box with trembling fingers and pulled out a small, framed photograph. Even from across the room, I could see what it was. The picture from the courthouse steps the day Chris adopted Alai. Both of them beaming at the camera, Allie holding her adoption certificate like it was made of gold. But it wasn't just any copy of the photo. This one had been professionally matted and framed with a gold nameplate at the bottom that read, "Day One Dad." Evelyn stared at it for a long moment, her lips pressed into a thin line. Then she reached back into the box and pulled out a folded document. Official-looking papers with state seals and legal stamps. "Are these..." she started to say, then stopped. Adoption papers, Chris said quietly from across the room. Legal documents proving that Allie is my daughter in every way that matters under the law. Evelyn unfolded the papers, scanning them like she was looking for some kind of loophole or mistake. But there it was in black and white, official and undeniable. Christopher Michael Henderson adopting Alexandra Rose Peterson, changing her name to Alexandra Rose Henderson, making her legally and permanently his child. But there was one more thing in the box. A letter handwritten in Chris's careful script. Evelyn pulled it out and began to read silently, but I knew what it said because Chris had read it to me the night before. As she read, I watched her face cycle through emotions. Confusion, then anger, then something that might have been fear. "Read it out loud, Mom," Sarah said. "What does it say?" Evelyn's voice was shaky when she spoke. "If you're reading this, Mom, it means you failed to see my daughter as family." She paused, looking up at Chris like she was waiting for him to take it back or say it was a joke. But Chris just stood there, his arms crossed, watching her with an expression I'd never seen before. Quiet determination, mixed with something that looked like disappointment. "Keep reading," he said simply. Evelyn looked back at the letter. "Allie is mine by choice, by heart, by law. She calls me Daddy because I earned that title through 3 years of bedtime stories, school plays, scraped knees, and unconditional love. She is not my stepdaughter. She is not my wife's daughter from a previous relationship. She is my daughter, period." Her voice was getting smaller with each word, like she was realizing the magnitude of what she'd been doing. "When I married Jenna, I didn't just gain a wife, I gained a family. Allie came to me already perfect, already whole, already worthy of love. I didn't save her or rescue her. She saved me. She taught me what it means to be a father." Evelyn stopped reading and looked around the room. Mark and Sarah were staring at her like they'd never seen her before. The kids were silent, but I could see Oliver nodding slightly like the letter was confirming something he'd always known. "There's more," Chris said. "Keep going. Every time you introduce her as Chris's daughter instead of your granddaughter, you erase a part of her identity. Every time you forget to include her in family plans or give her lesser gifts or leave her out of photos, you tell a 7-year-old child that she doesn't belong in her own family." Evelyn's hands were shaking now. "Chris, I never meant..." "Keep reading, Mom. You have one granddaughter named Maddie, 2 grandsons named Jonah and Oliver, and 1 granddaughter named Allie. Not biological versus adopted, not real versus step. Just 4 grandchildren who deserve equal love and attention and respect." The room was so quiet I could hear the clock ticking on the mantel. Even Maddie and Jonah, who usually couldn't sit still for 5 minutes, were frozen listening to every word. "If you can't see Allie as your granddaughter, then you don't see me as your son. Because a real son protects his children from people who would diminish them, even if that person is his own mother." Evelyn looked up at Chris, her eyes wide. "You can't be serious." "Keep reading. If you're reading this letter, it means Allie has been hurt one more time by your inability to accept her as family. It means she felt invisible enough to give you this box. It means my 7-year-old daughter had to advocate for her own worth because the adults around her failed to do it." Now, Evelyn was crying, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of anger and humiliation, the kind of tears that come when someone realizes they've been caught doing something they can't defend. "This is manipulation," she said, her voice rising. "This is Jenna's doing. She's turning you against your own family." But before I could even respond, Allie stepped forward. "No," she said clearly. "Mommy didn't make Daddy write that letter. And she didn't make you give me a candle while everyone else got phones. And she didn't make you call me Chris's girl instead of your granddaughter." The simplicity of her words hit harder than any accusation could have. A 7-year-old stating facts without emotion, without drama, just truth. "Allie, sweetheart, you don't understand," Evelyn started. "I understand that you don't like me," Allie interrupted, still in that same calm voice. "And that's okay. You don't have to like me, but you don't get to pretend it's someone else's fault." Evelyn turned to me, her face red with anger. This is what you wanted, isn't it? To turn my son against me, to destroy my family. I could have yelled back. I could have listed every slight, every insult, every time she'd made my daughter feel small. But looking at Ali standing there so brave and sure of herself, I realized she'd already said everything that needed to be said. No, Evelyn, I said quietly. Ali gave you a chance to see her. 3 years of chances, actually. You chose not to. I never chose anything. I've always been kind to her. Kind. The word came from an unexpected source. Oliver had stood up, his young face flushed with an anger I'd never seen from him before. Oliver, sit down, Mark said quickly. No, Dad. Grandma, you gave me a phone and Ali got a candle. You took pictures of us and told Ali to take the pictures. You sent birthday invitations to everyone except Ali. That's not kind. That's mean. Evelyn looked genuinely shocked. Oliver, you don't understand the complexities. I understand that Ali is my cousin, and you're mean to her, Oliver said, his 7-year-old voice cutting through all the adult justifications and excuses. And if you're going to be mean to her, then you're being mean to my family. She's more family to me than you are right now. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Here was a 7-year-old boy calling out his grandmother for something all the adults had been too polite or too scared to address directly. Sarah gasped. Oliver. What, it's true. Ailey always shares her snacks with me. She helps me with my drawings. She never makes me feel bad about anything. Grandma makes her feel bad all the time. Mark looked uncomfortable. Mom, maybe we should. Don't you start, Evelyn snapped. This is ridiculous. I'm being attacked by children over Christmas presents. It's not about Christmas presents, Ali said softly. It's about family. She walked over to where I was sitting and climbed onto my lap, but she kept looking at Evelyn. Daddy says that family means you're stuck with each other, but in a good way. Like even when someone makes mistakes or says the wrong thing, you still love them and help them be better. She paused, thinking. I tried to be good family to you, Grandma Evelyn. I tried to be patient while you figured out how to love me. But I don't think you want to figure it out. And that's okay, but I don't want to keep trying so hard to make you see me anymore. The finality in her voice was devastating. This wasn't a child having a tantrum or demanding attention. This was a little girl, setting a boundary, protecting herself from further hurt. Evelyn looked around the room, searching for support for someone to tell her she was right, and we were all overreacting. But Sarah was staring at her coffee cup. Mark was studying his hands. Maddie and Jonah were looking anywhere but at their grandmother. Fine, Evelyn said. Finally, her voice brittle. Fine, if this is how you want to handle family disagreements, then maybe you should just leave. Chris stood up slowly. We will. Chris, no, Sarah said quickly. Mom, just apologize. This doesn't have to. Apologize for what Evelyn demanded, for not treating an adopted child exactly the same as my biological grandchildren. The words came out sharp and ugly, and I watched them land on Ali like physical blows. But my daughter didn't cry. She didn't shrink. She just looked sad in a way that was somehow worse than anger. There it is, Chris said quietly. Thank you for finally saying what we all knew you were thinking. He walked over to us and held out his hand to Ali. Come on, sweetheart, let's go home. Ali slid off my lap and took his hand, but before they headed toward the door, she walked back to Evelyn's chair. Grandma, Evelyn. Evelyn looked down at her, her face a mask of stubborn pride. I hope someday you change your mind about me, and if you do, you can call Daddy. But until then, I'm going to spend my time with people who think I'm worth loving just the way I am. She picked up her lavender candle from the coffee table and walked toward the door, leaving behind the red box, the adoption papers, the photo, and the letter that had just changed everything. As we gathered our coats, I heard Oliver's voice behind us. Can I come with you? We turned around. Oliver was standing by the couch looking small and uncertain. Oliver, you stay here, Mark said firmly. But I want to go with Ali and Uncle Chris and Aunt Jenna. This is your family, Evelyn said coldly. Oliver looked at Ailey. then at his grandmother, then back at Allie. "Allie's my family too," he said simply. "And I like her family better right now." And that more than anything else seemed to break something in Evelyn. The realization that her own grandson was choosing to leave with the child she'd rejected. But we were already walking out the door, stepping into the bright Christmas morning sunlight, leaving behind a house that had never felt like home anyway. In the car, Allie was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "Daddy, are you sad about Grandma Evelyn?" Chris looked at her in the rearview mirror. "I'm sad that she chose to miss out on knowing how amazing you are. But I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself." "Good," Allie said, settling back in her seat with her candle cradled in her lap. "Because I'm not sad anymore. I'm just ready to go home." And for the first time in 3 years, home felt like exactly where we belonged. Walking out of that house felt like stepping into a completely different world. The December air was crisp and clean, and for the first time in years, I could breathe deeply without feeling like I was holding my breath, waiting for the next slight or insult. No one followed us to the car. No one called out for us to wait or tried to smooth things over. Sarah stayed inside, probably trying to calm Evelyn down. Mark was likely dealing with Oliver's questions about why his cousin had to leave. And Evelyn, well, Evelyn was probably sitting in her perfect living room, surrounded by expensive wrapping paper and hurt feelings, trying to figure out how everything had gone so wrong. But here's the thing about burning bridges. Sometimes the fire clears the way for something better to grow. The drive home was quiet, but it wasn't the heavy, uncomfortable silence we'd become used to after family gatherings. This was different. Peaceful almost. Like we'd finally stopped carrying a weight we didn't realize was there. Allie fell asleep in the back seat, still clutching her lavender candle. And you know what? I was glad she kept it. Not because it was a generous gift or because it represented anything positive about Evelyn, but because it was proof. Proof that she had tried, that she had been patient, that she had given someone every opportunity to see her worth. When we got home, Chris and I didn't talk about what had happened right away. We just went through the motions of Christmas afternoon. We made hot chocolate and watched holiday movies and let Allie open the presents we'd actually put thought and care into choosing for her. It wasn't until after she'd gone to bed that Chris and I finally sat down in our kitchen and really processed what had happened. "Do you think we did the right thing?" I asked. Chris was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee mug. "I think we did the only thing. I'm just sorry it took me so long to get there." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I should have stood up to her years ago. The first time she made Allie feel less than. The first time she called her Chris's girl instead of her granddaughter. I kept thinking if I gave my mother enough time, she'd come around. But people don't change unless they want to change." He looked up at me, and I could see years of guilt and regret in his eyes. Allie shouldn't have had to be the one to advocate for herself today. That should have been my job from day one. "But she did it," I said. "She stood up for herself with more grace and dignity than most adults could manage. I've never been more proud of her." "Me too. Did you see her face when she gave my mother that box? She wasn't angry or vindictive. She was just done accepting less than she deserved." Over the next few days, I kept expecting the phone to ring. An apology from Evelyn maybe, or Sarah trying to mediate, or even Mark calling to check on us. But our phone stayed silent. It was like we'd simply been erased from the family narrative. Which honestly was probably exactly what Evelyn wanted. But then, on New Year's Eve, something unexpected happened. I was sorting through the mail when I saw a small padded envelope addressed to Allie Henderson in careful kid-sized handwriting. The return address said Oliver Henderson. "Allie," I called, "you got a package." She came running from the living room where she'd been building an elaborate Lego castle, and her face lit up when she saw Oliver's name on the envelope. "Oliver sent me something." She opened it carefully, and inside was a small white jewelry box. When she lifted the lid, she gasped. It was a silver bracelet, delicate, and clearly chosen with care. Hanging from it was a small heart charm with something engraved on it. Ali held it up to the light, trying to read the tiny letters. "What does it say?" she asked. I looked closer. In tiny script, it said, "Cousins forever." But there was also a note written in Oliver's 7-year-old handwriting. "Dear Ailey, I saved my allowance for 3 months to buy this. I wanted to get you something that showed you're my real cousin, and always will be. I'm sorry my grandma was mean to you. I told my dad I don't want to go to family things if you can't come too. I hope we can still be friends. Love, Oliver. P.S. My mom says I can invite you to my birthday party, and my grandma doesn't get to decide who comes." Ali read the note 3 times, then carefully put the bracelet on her wrist. It was a little too big, but she didn't care. "Mommy, can we call Oliver and thank him?" "Of course, baby." When Oliver answered the phone, the first thing he said was, "Did you like it? I wasn't sure about the size." "I love it," Ali told him. "I'm never taking it off." "Good, because you're my cousin and I want everyone to know it." They talked for 20 minutes about Lego sets and school and plans for Oliver's birthday party. Just 2 kids being kids, not worrying about adult drama or family politics. After Ali hung up, she came and sat next to me on the couch. "Mommy, I think Oliver understands what family means." "What do you think family means, sweetheart?" She touched the heart charm on her bracelet, thinking it over with that serious expression she got when she was working through something important. "I think family means you choose to love someone, and keep choosing to love them even when it's hard. Like how Daddy chose to love me when he didn't have to, and how Oliver chose to save his allowance to buy me this bracelet because he wanted me to know he cares about me." She paused, looking out the window where snow was starting to fall. "And I think sometimes people who are supposed to be family don't know how to choose love. And that's sad for them, but it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you." 7 years old, and she understood something that had taken me decades to figure out. That night, I was putting away Christmas decorations when I found the red box on the kitchen counter. Chris had brought it home from Evelyn's house, though I'm not sure why. Maybe as a reminder, or maybe because it seemed wrong to leave it there. I held it for a moment, this small red box that had contained so much power. Then I carried it upstairs to our bedroom closet, where I keep all of Allie's important things. Her first baby shoes, her hospital bracelet from when she was born, the program from her preschool graduation, the photo from adoption day. I placed the red box next to these treasures, not because of what it represented about Evelyn, but because of what it represented about Allie. The day she learned to stand up for herself. The day she decided she was worth fighting for. 3 months later, we got a call from Sarah. Evelyn had been asking about us, wondering if we might consider coming to Easter dinner. "She misses you," Sarah said. "She's been thinking about what happened at Christmas." "Has she been thinking about Allie specifically?" Chris asked. "Because that's what this is really about." There was a long pause. "She's struggling with how to move forward." "Tell her she can start by calling Allie her granddaughter," Chris said simply. "When she's ready to do that consistently and genuinely, she can call us. Until then, we're building our own family traditions." We never did get that call. But you know what? We did get invitations to Oliver's birthday party, where Allie was treated like the honored guest she deserved to be. Playdates with Sarah's kids, who seemed relieved to be able to enjoy Allie's company without walking on eggshells around their grandmother. Family dinners with Mark and his wife, who had apparently been waiting for someone else to acknowledge the elephant in the room. We built new traditions. Christmas mornings became about just the 3 of us opening presents and making pancakes and watching movies in our pajamas. We started hosting Easter egg hunts in our backyard for Oliver and any other kids who wanted to come. We created photo albums filled with pictures of people who actually wanted to be in them. And Allie thrived. She stopped asking careful questions about whether she belonged places. She stopped accepting less than she deserved from anyone. She learned that love isn't something you have to earn or prove your worth, for it's something that's freely given by people who see your value. Last week, she came home from school and told me about a new girl in her class who was being left out by some of the other kids. So I asked her to sit with me at lunch. Ali said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. That was very kind of you. Well, nobody should have to feel invisible. And besides, she's really funny. The other kids are missing out. That's when I knew we'd done something right. Not just in standing up to Evelyn, but in teaching Ali that she has the power to include others, to make people feel seen and valued, to be the kind of family members she wished she'd had. Family isn't about who smiles for the camera, or who shares DNA, or who's been around the longest. Family is about who shows up when it matters most, who sees your worth when you can't see it yourself, who fights for your place at the table instead of making you grateful for the scraps. Ali taught us that you don't have to shrink yourself to fit into spaces that don't want you. You can find bigger spaces, or create your own, or simply walk away with your dignity intact. She's 9 now, and she still wears Oliver's bracelet every day. Sometimes I catch her touching the heart charm when she's thinking about something important, like it's a reminder of who she is and who loves her. That red box is still in our closet, but it doesn't represent pain anymore. It represents the day a 7-year-old girl decided she was worth more than lavender candles and afterthought gifts. The day she claimed her space in the world and taught the rest of us how to do the same. That's what family looks like now. Not perfect, but real. Not always easy, but always honest. And most importantly, big enough for everyone who wants to be there. Because at the end of the day, love isn't about biology or obligation or tradition. Love is about choice. And every day we choose each other. Every day we choose to show up. Every day we choose to see each other's worth and reflect it back like light. And that choice, that daily decision to love and be loved in return, that's what makes us family. Sometimes, the smallest voices carry the biggest truths. Ali taught us that you don't have to accept being invisible just to keep the peace. What do you think about her choice to give Evelyn that red box? Have you ever had to stand up for yourself and your own family? Share your story in the comments below. And if you want to hear more stories about finding your voice and claiming your worth, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications. Thanks for listening, and remember, you're never too small to stand up for what's right.